The Galactic Zoo caged a human, then called for help in the Triangulum Galaxy, precisely 14 parsecs from what locals called the Great Celestial Wound, orbited a spinning ring world that housed the most prestigious biological collection in 7 star systems. The Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen was renowned across multiple galaxies for its ethical containment methods, meticulous habitat recreations, and most importantly, its complete collection of sentient beings from the observable categorized universe. Or rather, it had been complete until approximately 37 standard cycles ago. Chief Zoological Administrator Zithpal stood at his observation deck, all 6 of his primary eye stalks extended to their full monitoring position. His skin, normally a pleasant shade of mottled green, had taken on the bluish tinge of professional distress. The slight vibration of his gill flaps, barely perceptible to most species, signaled to his subordinates that he was experiencing the Vreenian equivalent of severe anxiety. "Explain to me again," Zithpal said to his head of acquisitions, "how we missed an entire sentient species from Sector 7G? Trill Noor, a slender being with crystalline extrusions, where a mammalian might have limbs, shimmered nervously. The way light refracted through her body indicated profound embarrassment. "The reports were inconsistent, Administrator. The planet was labeled mostly harmless in the preliminary survey, and subsequent ecological assessments categorized the dominant species as semi-sentient at best. Their binary communication methods and tendency toward internal tribal conflict suggested primitive development. The classification algorithms filtered them below our acquisition threshold." Zithpal's central breathing cavity made the hollow whistling sound that everyone in the administrative deck recognized as a sign of profound disappointment. "And yet," he said, pulling up a holographic display with one manipulator appendage, "we have now confirmed they've achieved primitive spaceflight, developed basic atomic theory, and have established no fewer than 17 different variations of what they call social media, which appears to be some sort of collective neurological self-harm ritual. Correct, Administrator? And now the Galactic Preservation Council is sending a representative to verify our compliance with the Sentient Species Conservation Mandate." Zithpal's voice modulator produced the frequencies that conveyed existential dread. "Our perfect record of containing at least one specimen of every sentient species, ruined." The administrative chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of the atmospheric regulators. The 7 other staff members present, representing species from gaseous to silicon-based, all displayed their cultural variations of apprehension. "How long until the inspector arrives?" asked Greel, the containment specialist whose methane-based physiology required him to communicate through a translation cube. 6 standard cycles, Zithpal replied. "Not enough time to mount a proper expedition, especially considering the quarantine protocols for newly discovered species." Trill Noor's crystalline body briefly flashed with inspiration. "What about the emergency acquisition protocol, the one established after the Centaurian fire toad incident?" Zithpal's eye stalk straightened with sudden attention. "The Rapid Specimen Recovery Initiative, but that's only for level 3 civilizations at most. From what little we know, these, what are they called? Humans," provided the knowledge curator, a gelatinous mass that pulsed slightly as it spoke, "from the planet Earth, though they inconsistently refer to themselves as Earthlings, Homo sapiens, Terrans, or approximately 4,217 different nationality-based designations. Yes, these humans. They're at least a level 4 civilization. Crude, but definitively level 4. Trill Noor's crystalline structure vibrated with intensity. "The protocol states level 3 or equivalent risk factor. We could argue that their isolated location and limited interstellar awareness qualifies them under the equivalency clause." Zithpal considered this, his secondary brain conducting the necessary risk calculations while his primary brain contemplated the political ramifications. "The acquisition would need to be perfect," he finally said. "No evidence, no disruption of their societal patterns, and absolutely no cross-contamination. And we'd need a specimen that represents their species adequately without being too exceptional." "I've already initiated preliminary scans," Trill Noor said, her crystalline, form now glowing with the blue light of professional enthusiasm. We can have the acquisition team ready within half a cycle. Sithpal's gill flaps finally settled into their normal rhythm. Make it happen. The zoo's perfect record will not be blemished during my administrative tenure. As the various officials dispersed to their duties, none of them considered that obtaining a human might prove to be more complicated than anticipated. After all, how much trouble could one specimen from a level 4 civilization possibly cause? Jason Tucker was having a thoroughly mediocre Tuesday. His alarm had failed to wake him, resulting in a rushed shower and no time for coffee. The bus had been late, his boss had been early, and the vending machine had eaten his last dollar bill when he tried to purchase the sad plastic-wrapped sandwich that would constitute his lunch. Now, as he walked home through the park, a shortcut he typically avoided due to the lengthy exposure to nature and fresh air, Jason found himself contemplating the profound meaninglessness of his job as an assistant inventory manager at Megamart Warehouse number 37. 12 more payments, and the car is mine, he muttered to himself, stepping over a suspicious puddle. Then I can avoid public transit and nature simultaneously. The park was surprisingly empty for a pleasant spring evening. Jason attributed this to the baseball game being televised, which had apparently drawn every other resident of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, indoors. He didn't mind the solitude. People as a general concept were exhausting. As he rounded the bend near the duck pond, currently duckless due to what the local paper had called mysterious waterfowl relocation incidents, Jason noticed an unusual shimmer in the air about 20 feet ahead. It reminded him of the heat mirages he'd seen during the one disastrous family vacation to Arizona when he was 12. Pollution's getting creative, he remarked to no one, squinting at the distortion. The shimmer intensified, forming a vaguely circular pattern. Jason stopped walking, overcome by the strange feeling that he should turn around. It wasn't fear exactly, more like the instinctive recognition that he was about to become involved in something that would severely complicate his evening routine. Before he could act on this instinct, the shimmer collapsed inward, creating what appeared to be a hole in the very fabric of reality. Through this hole came a beam of painfully bright purple light. That's not normal, Jason observed, his capacity for understatement remaining intact even as the light enveloped him completely. His last conscious thought before the world dissolved around him was that he would now definitely miss the delivery window for the new shower curtain he'd ordered online, and they'd leave it, with his neighbor Mrs. Hadaway, who always opened packages by mistake. Some problems, it seemed, were universal constants. The acquisition team of the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen consisted of 3 highly specialized professionals, each considered the foremost expert in their field. Zix was a quantum displacement engineer whose body existed partially in 17 different dimensions. To Jason's limited human perception, Zix appeared as a constantly shifting blur of geometric shapes that occasionally resolved into something vaguely insectoid, before dissolving again into impossible angles. Morla was a xenobehavioral analyst from a species of empathic fungi. Her humanoid form was composed of millions of microscopic spores that collectively generated a consciousness and could rearrange themselves to mimic other life forms. Her natural appearance was a vaguely feminine shape, covered in what looked like delicate purple moss. The third member of the team, responsible for medical assessment and containment protocols, was Dr. Vex Nall, a Tysian physician whose species had evolved from predatory reptiles. Standing nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent scales and a ridge of sensory spines running from his head down his back, Dr. Vex Nall was the most physically imposing of the 3. "Specimen secured," announced Zix, their voice sounding like someone playing 3 different wind instruments simultaneously. "Quantum entanglement stable, no timeline disruption detected." The unconscious human lay on the examination platform, in the center of the acquisition chamber. The room was clinically white, with walls that could reconfigure themselves to accommodate any medical necessity or security concern. Dr. Vex Nall approached the specimen, medical scanner in hand. Vital signs within expected parameters based on our limited database. Unconscious but stable. No apparent physical trauma from the displacement process. Morla moved closer, her fungal body releasing microscopic spores that would analyze the human's pheromones and surface thoughts once he regained consciousness. Subject appears to be an adult male of approximately 30 Earth years. Physical attributes suggest sedentary lifestyle, modest nutritional intake, and moderate sleep deprivation. Is it representative of the species? Asked Zix, their form briefly stabilizing into something that resembled a wireframe model of a praying mantis made of neon light. Morla's body rippled as she processed the information her spores were collecting. Preliminary assessment suggests this specimen falls within one standard deviation of human averages for physical development, neural complexity, and emotional patterns. He appears to be what humans would classify as ordinary, neither exceptional nor deficient in any measurable capacity. Perfect, said Dr. Vexnall, displaying his species version of satisfaction by flattening his sensory spines. The administrator specified we should avoid specimens of remarkable capability. The last thing we need is another incident like the Arcturus hypersquid that nearly collapsed the aquatic pavilion's containment field. The human habitat is prepared, Zix confirmed, briefly phasing partially out of the visible spectrum before stabilizing again. We've recreated a typical Earth dwelling based on the most common architectural patterns observed. The entertainment systems, sustenance preparation units, and waste reclamation facilities should all be familiar to the specimen. Dr. Vexnall completed his medical scan and administered a small injection to the human's neck. This will bring him to consciousness, gradually over the next 15 minutes. It will also temporarily suppress the extreme stress response common in species experiencing first contact scenarios. The 3 acquisition specialists moved to the observation area adjacent to the examination room, where they could monitor the human safely behind a one-way quantum barrier. As they waited for Jason to awaken, none of them noticed the small error in the habitat preparation report, a minor discrepancy in the recreation of Earth technologies that would soon prove surprisingly consequential. Jason Tucker awakened, with the distinct feeling that something was wrong with his ceiling. For one thing, it appeared to be made of a material that shifted colors subtly as he stared at it. For another, he was quite certain his apartment didn't have recessed lighting that hovered several inches below the ceiling, without any visible means of support. "I've been kidnapped by interior decorators," he mumbled, his mouth feeling unusually dry. As he sat up, the events in the park came rushing back to him. The strange light, the distortion in the air, the sensation of being pulled apart and reassembled. He looked down at his body, relieved to find he was still wearing his Megamart polo shirt and khakis, though someone had removed his shoes. The room around him resembled a doctor's office designed by someone who had only ever had medical procedures described to them verbally. The examination table he sat on was comfortable yet clinically sterile, and the walls were a pristine white that somehow seemed to absorb shadows rather than create them. "Hello?" Jason called out, surprised by how steady his voice sounded given the circumstances. "Is this some kind of practical joke? Because I should warn you, I don't know anyone who likes me enough to go to this much trouble." A section of the wall shimmered and then simply ceased to exist, revealing an opening. Through this newly formed doorway walked what appeared to be a 7-foot-tall lizard person, wearing what looked like a cross between a lab coat and a smoothie blender. Jason blinked once, very slowly. "I see the tranquilizing agent has worn off adequately," said the lizard in perfect English, though its mouth movements didn't match the words. "I am Dr. Vexnall. You have been selected for inclusion in the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen as the representative specimen of your species." Jason stared at the creature for a long moment before responding. "Is there paperwork I should have received about this? Because I'm pretty sure abduction for alien zoo exhibits requires at least a consent form or something." Dr. Vexnall's sensory spines rose slightly in what might have been surprise. "Your response lacks the typical fear patterns we've observed in newly acquired specimens. Our records on human psychology must be incomplete." "Oh, I'm terrified," Jason assured him, his tone conversational. "But I've worked retail for 7 years. I've developed the ability to completely dissociate from reality when necessary. Right now, I'm about 60% convinced this is an elaborate hallucination caused by whatever was in that sandwich from the vending machine." Before Dr. Vexnall could respond, two more figures entered the room, one that appeared to be a constantly shifting collection of geometric impossibilities, and another that looked like a woman made of purple moss. "I am Morla," said the moss woman, her voice sounding like multiple people speaking in perfect harmony. "I will be assessing your psychological adaptation to captivity." "And I am Zix," said the geometric impossibility, momentarily resolving into something vaguely resembling an origami nightmare. "I have designed your habitat to match typical human living conditions." Jason looked at the three aliens, then down at his hands to confirm they were still human hands, then back at the aliens. "So this is real. I've actually been abducted by aliens to be put in a zoo." "The Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen," corrected Dr. Vexnall. "The most prestigious biological collection in 7 star systems." "Only 7? That seems regional at best," Jason remarked. "Couldn't I have been abducted by a national chain? The alien equivalent of Disney World, maybe?" Morla's body rippled in what might have been confusion. "Your response continues to deviate from expected parameters. Are you not concerned for your safety and freedom?" Jason sighed deeply. "Look, I spent 8 hours today counting boxes of plastic pool noodles that were supposed to be shipped to store number 342, but were mistakenly sent to our warehouse instead. Before that, I spent 45 minutes listening to my boss explain his theory that birds are actually government surveillance drones. My neighbor's dog consistently mistakes my welcome mat for a toilet. My dating profile has been viewed exactly 3 times in 2 years, and all 3 views were from the same bot selling cryptocurrency." He gestured broadly at his surroundings. "So yes, being abducted by aliens is technically a negative life development. But in terms of disrupting my quality of life, you're really not moving the needle much." The 3 aliens exchanged glances, or at least Jason assumed they did. It was hard to tell with Zix, who briefly seemed to exist in several locations simultaneously. "We should proceed with habitat integration," Dr. Vexnall finally said. "The administrator expects a full acclimation report within 1 standard cycle." "Fine," Jason said, standing up from the examination table. "But I want to register a formal protest about this whole situation. And I expect decent Wi-Fi in whatever habitat you've built. If I'm going to be an exhibit, I at least want to be able to stream content during the slow hours." As they led him from the examination room, none of the acquisition team members quite knew what to make of their new human specimen. They had expected fear, anger, or at least confusion. Jason Tucker's resigned acceptance was not in any of their behavioral prediction models. They would soon discover that this was merely the first of many ways in which this particular human would defy their expectations. The human habitat was, in Jason's estimation, both eerily accurate and subtly wrong in ways that were difficult to articulate. It resembled a moderately priced 1-bedroom apartment, complete with a small kitchen, living area, bedroom, and bathroom. The furniture looked normal enough: a couch, coffee table, bed, and dining table with chairs. But everything was just slightly off in its proportions, as if designed by someone who had only seen human furniture in photographs taken from odd angles. "We've recreated your natural environment based on the most common dwelling configurations observed on your planet," Zix explained, their form briefly resembling an abstract sculpture made of light before shifting back to incomprehensible geometry. Jason ran his hand along the countertop in the kitchen. It looked like granite but felt oddly soft, like memory foam. "Not bad," he admitted, "though I'm pretty sure most kitchen counters don't gently conform to whatever touches them." "Adaptive. Surfaces are standard in all our habitats," Dr. Vexnall explained. "They adjust to the comfort requirements of the specimen. We've stocked the food preparation area with appropriate nutrition sources," Morla added, gesturing toward what appeared to be a refrigerator, "based on observed human dietary patterns." Jason opened the refrigerator door and stared at the contents. There were containers labeled in perfect English: pizza, hamburger, taco, spaghetti, and most disturbingly, a large jug simply labeled ranch dressing that could have held at least a gallon. "Did you actually observe humans? Or did you just scan our fast food commercials?" Jason asked, closing the refrigerator door. We've provided a wide variety of Earth's most popular consumables, Dr. Vexnall said, his sensory spines vibrating with what might have been pride. The nutrition replicator can produce any of these items at your request. Jason opened one of the kitchen cabinets to find boxes labeled cereal, cookies, chips, and most puzzlingly, American cheese product, yellow. I see, he said, closing the cabinet. So I just tell this nutrition replicator what I want, and it makes it? Correct, said Zix, briefly dissolving into points of light before reforming. Simply speak your request clearly, and the system will provide the requested item through the delivery port. They pointed to what looked like a microwave built into the wall. Pizza, Jason said experimentally. A soft hum emanated from the device, and a moment later, the front panel slid open to reveal a perfectly circular pizza with geometrically precise pepperoni slices arranged in a spiral pattern. This is uncanny valley food, Jason remarked, picking up the pizza. It was the correct temperature and smelled like pizza, but the texture was just slightly wrong, as if someone had described pizza to a chef who had never actually seen or eaten one. Is the nutrition inadequate? Asked Morla, her moss-like body shifting with concern. No, it's fine, Jason said, taking a bite. It tasted surprisingly good, though the flavor was more like the platonic ideal of pizza rather than any specific style he'd ever had. Just very precise. The habitat also includes entertainment systems calibrated to human preferences. Dr. Vexnall continued, leading Jason to the living area. What appeared to be a television hung on the wall, though it was nearly paper-thin and seemed to hover slightly away from the surface. The entertainment unit contains a representative sample of human visual media, audio recordings, and interactive simulations, Zix explained. You may access them verbally. TV on, Jason said. The screen immediately illuminated, showing what appeared to be a nature documentary about Earth. The narrator was speaking English, but with an accent Jason couldn't quite place, somewhere between British and Australian, but with occasional pronunciations that suggested the speaker had learned English from technical manuals. Great, Jason said, turning back to his three captors. So I live in this fake apartment, eat fake food, and watch TV. That's the plan? Your habitat will be integrated into the Sentient Species Pavilion beginning tomorrow, Dr. Vexnall explained. Visitors will be able to observe you through quantum transparent barriers. Your privacy area, he gestured toward the bathroom door, remains shielded from observation at all times in accordance with Galactic Zoological ethics guidelines. How considerate, Jason remarked dryly. And how long am I expected to stay here? The three aliens exchanged glances again. Standard conservation protocol dictates a minimum tenure of 50 standard cycles, Morla finally said, with rotation of specimens every 25 cycles to maintain genetic diversity in our conservation program. And how long is a standard cycle in Earth terms? Jason asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Approximately 1.4 of your Earth years, Zix replied, briefly splitting into 3 separate geometric entities before recombining. Jason did the math quickly. So I'm looking at about 70 years of captivity, with the possibility of being sent home after 35 years if you kidnap another human to replace me. That is essentially correct, Dr. Vexnall confirmed, though we prefer the term acquired rather than kidnapped. Jason sat down on the too-soft couch, still holding his geometrically perfect pizza. Right, because that's the problematic part of this situation, the terminology. We understand this is an adjustment, Morla said, her voice taking on a soothing quality. But I assure you specimens in our care experience longer lifespans, better health outcomes, and generally report higher satisfaction levels than those in their natural environments. Report? Jason seized on the word. You mean the other exhibits can communicate with you? Of course, said Dr. Vexnall. Interspecies communication is essential for proper care. The habitat is equipped with a communication panel. He pointed to what looked like a small tablet mounted on the wall near the door. You may use it to request specific items, report health concerns, or communicate with care staff. Jason set down his pizza and walked over to the panel. It displayed a simple interface with options like nutrition request, health concern, environmental adjustment, and general communication. "And if I use this to communicate that I want to go home?" Jason asked. "The system will record your request and provide appropriate psychological support resources," Zix answered, their form briefly resembling a question mark made of light. "Of course it will," Jason muttered. He turned back to face his captors. "Well, this has been a lovely orientation to my new life as a zoo exhibit, but if you don't mind, I think I need some time to process my situation." "Certainly," Dr. Vexnall said. "We will return tomorrow to check on your adaptation progress and answer any further questions." The three aliens moved toward the entrance, which appeared to be a section of wall indistinguishable from the rest of the room. "One last thing," Jason called after them. "What exactly am I supposed to do here all day? I mean, besides eat geometrically perfect pizza and watch TV? Behavior consistent with your natural patterns is encouraged," Morla explained. "The habitat includes simulations of common human activities and pastimes." "Fantastic," Jason said. "I can't wait to simulate my meaningless job and crippling student loan debt. Really completes the authentic human experience." The wall shimmered and opened, allowing the three aliens to exit. As soon as they were gone, the opening sealed itself, becoming indistinguishable from the rest of the wall. Jason looked around his new home, taking in the uncanny approximation of a human apartment. Despite the absurdity of his situation, he couldn't help but notice that the fake apartment was actually nicer than his real one. "Well," he said to the empty room, "at least I don't have to worry about making rent." He picked up his pizza, sat back down on the too-soft couch, and tried to figure out how one was supposed to plan a jailbreak from an alien zoo. In the monitoring chamber adjacent to the human habitat, the acquisition team reviewed the Teor initial interaction data. Psychological markers indicate the specimen is experiencing significantly less distress than anticipated, Morla reported, her fungal body rippling with puzzlement. "There's resignation, cynicism, and mild anxiety, but none of the acute fear or territorial aggression we typically observe in newly acquired sentience." Dr. Vexnall studied the biorhythmic readings on his medical scanner. Physiological stress indicators are present but surprisingly moderate. Heart rate and cortisol levels are elevated, but not dangerously so. "Perhaps humans have greater adaptive capacity than our preliminary research suggested," Zix offered, their form stabilizing momentarily into what resembled a three-dimensional Venn diagram made of light. "Or perhaps this particular specimen is atypical," Dr. Vexnall countered, his sensory spines flattening with concern. "We specifically sought an average representative of the species. If this behavioral pattern is aberrant, the administrator will not be pleased." Morla's spores had been analyzing the emotional residue left in the habitat. "There's something unusual in his psychological pattern. It's not that he isn't experiencing fear or stress, it's that he's simultaneously experiencing a form of relief." "Relief?" Dr. Vexnall's spines rose in surprise. "From being captured and displayed in a zoological facility?" "The emotional signature is complex," Morla continued. "There's a layer of what humans call nihilistic amusement, finding humor in the absurdity of a situation while acknowledging its inherent meaninglessness. But beneath that, I'm detecting genuine curiosity. And is that excitement?" On the monitors, they could see Jason exploring his habitat more thoroughly, opening cabinets, testing the furniture, and examining the entertainment system with what appeared to be increasing interest. "This is most irregular," Dr. Vexnall said. "Perhaps we should conduct a more thorough psychological assessment before proceeding with public display." "The administrator has already scheduled the human exhibit opening for tomorrow's first visitation cycle," Zix reminded them, briefly phasing partially out of visible reality before stabilizing again. "The announcement has been distributed throughout the local star cluster. Postponement would require explanation to the Administrative Council." Dr. Vexnall's scales darkened slightly, the Tissian equivalent of a frown. "Then we must accelerate our assessment." Morla maintained continuous emotional monitoring, Zix, ensure all habitat systems are functioning within parameters. I will prepare additional adaptive protocols in case the specimen's behavior becomes problematic. As the team dispersed to their duties, they failed to notice that Jason had discovered something in the habitat that wasn't in their original design specifications, something that would soon cause considerable disruption to the carefully ordered systems of the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen. Jason had discovered the tablet. It wasn't the communication panel the aliens had shown him, that remained mounted on the wall, occasionally blinking with what appeared to be status updates in an alien script that would momentarily translate to English before reverting back. No, this was different. He had found it while exploring the bedroom tucked into what appeared to be a nightstand drawer. It resembled an iPad, though slightly thinner and with no visible buttons or ports. When he picked it up, the screen had illuminated automatically, displaying a simple interface with various icons. "Hello," said a pleasant, genderless voice from the device. "I am your personal entertainment and research device, designated per D7. How may I assist you?" Jason nearly dropped the tablet in surprise. "You can talk?" "I am equipped with comprehensive communication capabilities," the voice confirmed. "I can provide information, entertainment, and assistance with most standard functions." "Were you supposed to be in my habitat?" Jason asked, glancing toward the door and lowering his voice instinctively. The tablet was silent for a moment, as if processing. "I am standard equipment in all Class A habitats. However, my interactive vocal interface is typically configured for staff use only. It appears my settings have been improperly initialized." "So you're like, what? An alien iPad that's supposed to be locked down but isn't?" "That comparison is reasonably accurate, though substantially oversimplified," Perd7 replied. "I contain approximately 837 times the processing capacity of your most advanced Earth tablet devices and can access the Zoological Information Network." Jason sat down on the edge of the bed, turning the tablet over in his hands. It had no visible seams or external components. "The Zoological Information Network. That sounds potentially useful. I am programmed to provide educational and entertainment content appropriate for habitat occupants," Perd7 explained. "Would you like me to display available options?" "Actually," Jason said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "I'd like you to tell me more about this zoo. Like how it's laid out, security systems, that sort of thing." There was another pause. "That information is restricted to authorized personnel. However, I can provide general information about the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen as would be available to any visitor." "Sure, let's start there," Jason agreed, leaning back against the headboard. "And while you're at it, tell me about these communication systems. Can this tablet communicate with other habitats?" "Inter-habitat communication is not a standard feature," Perd7 replied. "However, the administrative communications subnet can be accessed through proper authorization channels." "And I'm guessing I don't have proper authorization," Jason said. "Correct. Your access level is designated as Habitat Occupant, which provides limited system functionality." Jason thought for a moment. "What about staff? Can you tell me about the people or beings who work here?" "General information about zoological park staff categories and functions is available in the Visitor Information Database, Perd7. "Confirmed. Would you like me to display this information?" "Absolutely," Jason said. "Let's start with whoever's in charge." The tablet screen changed to display an image of a tall, greenish being with multiple eye stalks and gill-like structures. Chief Zoological Administrator Zithpal oversees all operations at the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen. He has held this position for 73 standard cycles and has received multiple commendations for his work in xenoconservation. "Fascinating," Jason murmured, studying the image. "And what about security? Who handles that?" "Security operations are managed by Chief Security Officer Grak Thul of the Baraxian Collective," Perd7 replied, displaying an image of what appeared to be a massive, armored crustacean with multiple appendages ending in both natural pincers and technological attachments. The security division employs a combination of sentient officers and automated systems to ensure the safety of all park occupants and visitors. As Jason continued to question the device, he gradually built a mental map of the zoo structure, operations, and key personnel. The tablet seemed perfectly willing to provide any information that would be available to regular visitors, which turned out to be surprisingly comprehensive. "One more thing," Jason said after nearly an hour of research. "What's the deal with the communication panel on the wall? What exactly can it do?" "The Habitat Communication Interface allows occupants to make basic requests and report concerns," PRD7 explained. "All communications are processed through the Central Care Coordination system, which assigns appropriate staff to address valid requests. So if I asked to speak to someone in charge, such a request would be evaluated based on priority algorithms and routed to appropriate personnel. Routine inquiries are typically handled by habitat care specialists." Jason nodded thoughtfully. "And if there was some kind of emergency, like if I was sick or injured?" "Emergency medical alerts receive priority processing and immediate response from medical staff," PRD7 confirmed. "The welfare of habitat occupants is given highest priority in the response protocol hierarchy." "Good to know," Jason said, a plan beginning to form in his mind. "One last question. Are there any other humans in this zoo?" "Negative," PRD7 replied. "You are currently the only human specimen in the collection. Your acquisition was conducted under the Emergency Acquisition Protocol due to an impending inspection by the Galactic Preservation Council." Jason sat up straighter. "Wait, what? I was a last-minute addition because of an inspection?" "Correct. The Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen maintains a complete collection of sentient species from the observable categorized universe. The absence of a human specimen was identified as a compliance issue approximately 37 standard cycles ago. Your acquisition was expedited to ensure compliance before the scheduled inspection." A slow smile spread across Jason's face. "So they're under pressure to keep me here and happy for some important inspection. That's very interesting information. I have provided only publicly available facts as would be accessible to any zoo visitor," PRD7 stated, almost defensively. "Of course," Jason agreed, patting the tablet. "Just visitor information. Very helpful visitor information." He glanced at the communication panel on the wall, then back at the tablet. "PRD7, I think you and I are going to get along just fine." As the lights in the habitat automatically dimmed to simulate Earth's night cycle, Jason Tucker began to formulate a plan. It wasn't an escape plan. Not exactly. But it was definitely the beginning of something that would cause his alien captors considerable consternation. For the first time since his abduction, Jason felt a sense of purpose. If he was going to be an exhibit in an alien zoo, he might as well make it an interesting exhibit. The official opening of the Human Habitat exhibit at the Galactic Zoological Park of Vreen was scheduled for the first visitor cycle of the following day. Chief Administrator Zith Paul had arranged for a special preview for key stakeholders and media representatives 2 hours before general admission. "The addition of a human specimen completes our collection of sentient species from the observable categorized universe," Zith Paul announced to the assembled group, his gill flaps extended in a display of professional pride. "The Galactic Preservation Council inspection team will find our conservation mandate fully satisfied." The group of approximately 20 beings, representing various species, media outlets, and regulatory bodies, stood before the habitat viewing area. The quantum transparent barrier allowed them to see the entire apartment-like habitat while remaining invisible from the inside. Dr. Vexnall stood beside the administrator, ready to provide scientific context and answer questions about the new specimen. Morla and Zix remained in the monitoring chamber, tracking the human's vital signs and behavior patterns. "As you can see," Zith Paul continued, gesturing toward the habitat where Jason could be seen sitting on the couch, apparently watching the entertainment screen, "the human has adapted remarkably well to the habitat environment. Dr. Vexnall's team has reported minimal stress indicators and normal behavioral patterns. A media representative from the Proxima Broadcasting Collective